Julie Michelson is a best-selling author, international speaker, and national board certified functional medicine health coach specializing in inflammation and autoimmunity. She is the creator of RA the Right Way and Inspired Living with Autoimmunity. She is passionate about helping her clients improve their autoimmune symptoms by identifying the root cause of their inflammation and creating the lifestyle changes that allow for true healing. So I'm curious, do you have an autoimmune condition yourself?
I have numerous autoimmune diagnoses in my history, and I have a history of over probably about a 12-year decline with rheumatoid arthritis before I learned the things that I know now. So yes.
Everything in remission now, that is kind of what you're implying. Awesome. Cool. Yeah. So amazing. You had rheumatoid arthritis and what else?
Hashimoto's, I'm celiac.
Wow.
Fibro. Bunches.
That is a lot. Yeah, for sure.
It does tend to snowball if you don't ever actually address the root cause. Many people with autoimmunity tend to acquire more and more diagnoses.
Yeah. My mom's on here, and I was just golfing with a friend of theirs, probably in his 70s, and she said, "Oh, well, he's careful with COVID because he has RA." And I'm like, "That's interesting, because he's golfing 3-4 times a week. He seems fine." And she said, "Well, he doesn't drink and he watches his diet." So it was nice to hear, because of course in our circle I'm hearing about that kind of thing, but it's nice to elsewhere hear, "Oh, great, that's why he's still so active." Fantastic.
That's fantastic. Yeah, my doctors were trying to talk me into adding a handicap placard to my car before I finally realized I just had to try a different approach. So
yeah, right.
I would not have been golfing in my 70s going the rate I was going. Now I definitely can be.
So did you say earlier it's been 10 or 12 years since you kind of got on the right track, started feeling better? Was that right?
I declined for about 12 years,
gotcha.
And it's been about 7 since I'm off all my meds and just really have a full life again.
Okay. So we had a question earlier about COVID, but inflammation applies to so many conditions, like so many, and that's mostly what we're going to talk about today. But if anyone has a specific question about their condition, feel free to chime in. But your first question is how to identify potential signs of chronic inflammation. I'm sure people would love to know. What are those signs?
Absolutely. Almost everything that we think of that we normalize as aging, right? So if you're waking up in the morning after a good amount of sleep and you're exhausted when you wake up, that's a good sign you've got chronic inflammation going on. General energy levels being lower than they were, those aches and pains that we tend to associate with aging. Oh, I'm just getting older. Of course, my knees hurt, or GI issues. And again, people really normalize their full range from bloating when you eat to, maybe only pooping twice a week, or, chronic diarrhea, just aggravated upset, heartburn, all of those things that we tend to, if that's our normal, we think they're normal, all point to inflammation. Chronic headaches, you name it, it's almost always there's an underlying inflammatory component.
Yeah, I think that's really true. So on the flip side, if we're managing inflammation well, we shouldn't feel all those signs of aging, it sounds like.
Correct. Like I feel, and of course I'm an extreme case because my RA was fairly aggressive, but I feel much younger at almost 52 than I did at 36, for sure.
Awesome. So what are some of the sources of inflammation? I think we first would think of like alcohol or fried foods, some of the really big offenders, but what's your list?
It's funny, those aren't two that I tend to specifically like verbalize, and they both are very inflammatory. And so food and diet for sure, processed foods in general, sugars, I would actually even put above alcohol, only because it's so easy to avoid alcohol, but unless you're really paying attention, sugars in everything, sugars or other sweeteners, and they're inflammatory for everybody, not just people with autoimmunity, for
Okay.
sure. Things like gluten, but really, again, if you're eating real whole foods and avoiding processed foods, you tend to be going in a much better direction. I would say it's funny. I always used to talk about food first. These days, for the past year, I usually talk about chronic stress first. That is, stress can be good for us, but chronic stress is inflammatory. Messes with our hormone balance, messes with our sleep, and just drives this continuous inflammation cycle. So I would say, I've had so many people come to me and say, well, I don't feel stressed. And then, they tell me what's going on in their life. And I'm like, oh my gosh, well, now I'm stressed.
Right. Yeah.
Again, we normalize, right? We think like, oh, this is just life. And that's great. And sometimes we can reduce our stressors. Sometimes we can't, but we can always manage them by creating a good stress management routine. So that's a big one.
Okay. Yeah, that's when I've really been focusing on my own life, really, because we do totally normalize it, especially depending on our personality type, also just our culture. And I've been feeling fatigued this week, and I was like, well, I did just go through this and that, and I was like, oh, well, also last year I got divorced and moved and had a concussion. Like, of course I'm tired, and it's like just giving myself permission to like rest and sleep more and like just legitimize that. I think it can be very healing.
Any one of those things, if somebody had said them to you, is, they're all on that life list of, really big stressors. My RA diagnosis was within 18 months of the divorce.
Oh, wow.
Fine through the divorce, and then my body just crashed. And I too had a significant concussion last January. That this week I made the comment, like, this is the best I've felt since my concussion.
So, oh, wow, that's a long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and we do, yes. And especially personality types, which leads right into the next one, which is sleep. Not getting the right quantity and quality of sleep is huge. And so, again, it's that if you're sleeping 8 or 9 hours and you wake up tired, that's a big sign. But also, everybody who says, well, I only need 4 hours of sleep, you're fooling yourself. Eventually it's going to catch up with you. But also how good is your sleep? How careful are you to set up to make sure you're getting really good restorative sleep? Because that's where we detox and heal. And it is something that links to personality. Stress definitely, and stress and diet. They all play together, right? So stress and diet impact sleep. And then those of us that are, running our own businesses and wanting to do a lot in life, it's really easy. I work with a lot of entrepreneurs that, it usually eventually they learn that burning the candle at both ends is not the win.
Right. And go back to what you said earlier, and then I'd love to hear some sleep tips. Like you said, you can go through a difficult thing and then later it hits you. I see that a lot with client intakes as well. Like, my dad was dying and this was happening, that happening, and I held it all together, and then I got sick. So what is this? The body kind of starting to show all it's gone through once you start to calm down a little bit. And unfortunately, sometimes that's when the diagnosis happens, but it's just good information to now work with, now that, hopefully you have time and space to work on yourself.
Absolutely. And as you said, acknowledge that, what we go through is a lot, and we can all make it through, but the best thing we can do is take that step back and really take good care of ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'd love to hear any tips you have on sleep, because I think we often say, oh, you got to get a good night's sleep. And people are like, well, how? Like, what am I
Right.
supposed to do?
Yeah. And so again, to reiterate, if you're eating a clean diet, it's going to help your sleep.
Okay.
Because it's going to reduce your inflammation as well, but also, help balance out some of those hormones. A good stress management routine will also help your sleep, right? Some tools of depending, I work with a lot of people who fall asleep and like a half hour later they're up and their mind is racing, or their mind is racing and they can't fall asleep. And so that's a direct connection, right, between our chronic stress levels and how we've thrown hormones off balance. But I always say, okay, keep it really simple. And, no matter how adult we are, we're humans. And so I think of, how did we set it up for our kids? Our kids had a bedtime routine. We should all have a bedtime routine. We should have a schedule. Obviously, with flexibility, life happens, things come up. But really helpful to have like a normal, what's your regular bedtime? It helps our body set up these positive circadian rhythm cycles. Same with waking up around the same time, so that, our body is used to, we get up in the morning and we go to bed at night. One of my favorite tips, I love, it's so good for so many things, but really to help set that circadian rhythm, is getting sunlight in your eyes in the morning. That's the start. Sleep is this whole play of, we want our cortisol low at night and we want to produce melatonin. And so sunlight in your eyes in the morning gets that cortisol going in the morning, and that's our wake up hormone. Also happens to be our stress hormone. So it's not a negative hormone, but we want to be in control of, how often and when in the day it's being released. And then that leads to the biggest, like, tie-in with that, is being careful about blue light in the evening. Like, we are just exposed, and by blue light, I'm talking about, our screens, any, computer, phone, TV, you name it, all throwing off a lot more blue light. Again, we used to only be exposed to that in the morning sun, and now we're exposed to it all day. So it blocks melatonin. And we want to be producing melatonin as we move toward bedtime. So blue blockers are great. I'm a big advocate of wearing blue blockers, especially, from like dinner time on, just to help prevent. A lot of us have either compact fluorescence or LED lights in our homes. Those throw off a lot of blue light too. So really being mindful of the chemistry to set you up for good sleep, combined with the habit. I think those are the most basic, like, bang for your buck tips.
Yeah. Yeah. I think of all those things as kind of like stressors to your nervous system, whether it's eating something sweet late at night, which definitely throws me off, or being around a lot of blue light. I love that they have these new blue blockers now that are just clear, because they were like red and yellow for a long time. I'm like, I can't even see when I'm wearing these, so I wouldn't like to wear them. So I need to get some. I think I might have some clear ones in here somewhere. Yeah, that would be a good for me.
Like, for me, because I am, pretty committed, not pretty, like ridiculously committed to my health and wellness. And I entered functional medicine via biohacking. So there was a time when those were the only option, and I had to wear them over my glasses because I wear prescription glasses. So you would catch me in my house at night with 2 pair of glasses. Not a good look, let me tell you. So now, for those of us that wear glasses, most places, if you're getting good lenses, you can just get the blue blocker added to your glasses, which for me has been life-changing. It's been huge.
Yeah, I should ask at my place, because they offered me some like glare protection that they didn't offer blue box.
And it's newer. It's it's a growing, and it's evolving. My last set that I got this past year was the first time they actually had that option for me.
Yeah, that would be super awesome, because the way you got your glasses on, you're often looking at a screen. Let's see.
So I love this. Yes, don't sleep with someone who snores. The sleep environment is so important. So things like totally black room, right? So making sure that you're not getting, light seeping in from your curtains. If you have any electronics in your room, covering all those little red LED lights with some black tape is a great help. Don't sleep with a big, bright alarm clock. And sound is tough, especially for parents. They want to be able to hear their kids. Some people like to sleep with earplugs, some people don't. I would say if you have a partner that snores, maybe encourage them to make sure they don't have apnea. Find out why they're snoring. I know I have many clients whose partners have apnea, that it's great. It's become a great thing because they are highly encouraged to wear their CPAP because they don't snore with the CPAP. So all of a sudden sleep for the other person is improving because there's no snoring. So it can be a big.
Yeah. Well, maybe this question isn't totally on our conversation. We got a question in the Q&A about a person who has Hashimoto's and mold and already doing a lot of practices, but feeling very sick and can't take binders. So I wondered if you have any tips you like to give on detox. Certainly lowering inflammation is a way to detox, but I think
it is. I have recovered from mold toxicity and have Hashimoto's as well. So I completely understand. I have many clients that are that sensitive that they can't handle binders. Gentle and slow is what I like to say. So I would say, yes, doing the things to reduce your toxic load, which was going to be next on my list as well anyway. So thinking about, we talked about food, but then I'm going to add to, the processed foods. Also think about, organic where it's important so that you're not getting overloaded with even more chemicals. And detoxing your environment. Our homes are actually more toxic than being outside. And we don't think of it that way, but they've become so airtight that, they do harbor mold, and air quality is usually, 10 times worse inside the home than outside. But really where we can take control is, what are we using in our homes? What are the products we're using on our bodies, around our bodies, in our kitchens? Are using plastics, the chemicals you're cleaning with? All of the toxins are cumulative. So wherever you can reduce that load, it's a win. It's a huge win, and you're giving your body a chance to catch up. And then specifically for the person that asked that question, I'm a really big fan. Again, I said gentle detox. So love things like if you can get or create access to infrared sauna, it's a great way to detox. Really square one, super easy is, take some Epsom salt baths. Like just start to detox via the natural pathways. We detox when we sweat, we detox when we urinate, make sure you're drinking a lot of water. So just very gentle, low and slow, which I know is frustrating when you don't feel well. And whoever, I didn't see the question pop up.
Yeah, it's in the Q&A, and so that doesn't show up as much. But yeah, she's doing like a very small amount of binders every 3 days and reacting. I'd also say, kind of similar to what Julie said, like binders are not the only way to detox by a long shot. I do like them, they're part of our base protocol. But if somebody was like, I can't do them, fine. And even, I think I had an interview recently talked about sauna. I rarely do binder anymore when I do sauna. I don't feel bad from sauna. So there isn't any indication that I need it really. And I may be in a different stage of my journey, but if you're pooping, if you're sweating, if you're drinking lots of water, there's lots of ways for toxins to move. Binders just are one aspect of detox.
I would also look at, especially when I hear toxicity and autoimmunity, and then I think of toxicity as being one of those inflammatory drivers. And so I would highly encourage some functional medicine labs and check your detox pathways. Do you need phase 2 detox support? You know, there are supplements and nothing's for everybody, but some of us do need a little help with certain phases of our detox cycle. And binders aren't always the answer.
That's a good point. Yeah, there's other things, broccoli sprouts and different things that could help. So yeah, that are more gentle, chlorella and chlorophyll, foot baths. So lots of options. I like to say there's such a long menu, and some people really can barely take a supplement. And I'm like, fine, there's still like 25 other things you can still do. So
exactly. And awesome. Foot bath, I was going to say it, you know, I even because it's sometimes easier to access, you know, if somebody wants something for home use than a sauna. I have both, but again, I'm a little, you know, on the end of the spectrum about what am I willing to do to be as healthy as I can be. And I have actually multiple toxicity issues. And so I continue to work. I've been able to get the mold and the mercury out, and I'm continuing to work on the other stuff. But I can put my feet in the foot bath while I'm working. It's perfect.
True. Yeah.
I have it. I don't right now, and you wouldn't know. So it's a great tool.
Yeah. So there's a couple other questions in the chat about light glasses, if you want to chime in on that, if you know any of those answers.
Sure. As far as, so I am not aware, old school, the amber colored glasses were like the way to go before technology caught up to the need for blue blocking. So that was, actually there was a pair of like really not attractive shop glasses for under $10 that had a really great blue blocking rating that I used to have my clients order from Amazon. So they weren't making this big investment in the things like the True Darks and the ones that were first on the market. I don't believe that to be true these days. You don't have to go with the amber color because technology has caught up to the need. And again, so if you're wearing the amber glasses, yes, your colors are going to be changed in your environment. Your perception will be different. I know the blue blocking that I have on my glasses now, the colors are true. They don't change. So that's another place where.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
Good advances.
I'm curious about that. Cool. I'm just going to show your gift page here quickly, and then there's something I wanted to ask you about. I lost my train of thought as well. Oh, I remember. I'll just show this real quick. So this has a little, this is maybe your tips infographic you can download or join this 7-day mini course.
Yep, it's a free mini course as well. And the first 3 things on the little infographic are the things we already started to talk about, what you're eating, your stress management, and your detox routine.
Cool. I'll put that again in the chat because I'm sure. Oh no, I put it on Facebook, but not the chat.
I can put it in.
Oh yeah, that'd be great. I recently wrote an article on lymphatic system, and it was super interesting. And one thing I learned from it, or was sort of emphasized, is when there's some physical area of chronic inflammation, injury, tension, that really blocks the lymph, and then potentially you're getting some more inflammation at the site, and then sort of some, how can you say, chronic inflammation messages throughout the body. So I wonder if you wanted to talk about some of those physical stressors and how they contribute to bigger inflammation issues.
Sure. And re-clarify specifically what area you want me to hit on that.
I guess I would say how chronic pain or tension is maybe more of a bigger deal than we think for the body's load.
Okay. And in so many different ways. Again, I'm going to first hit on that cycle of the stress hormones, right? Like if you're in chronic pain, if you're already there and we haven't addressed the why and the drivers and the lymphatic system and all of that, just simply being, that's when I always smile when, you know, clients show up and they say, I'm not stressed. And I'm like, really? And you've had chronic pain for how many years? You're not stressed. Like alone, that is a chronic stressor. And just to touch on, somebody had asked in the chat about, isn't it your response to stress and not the actual stress? And yes, we all do experience stress, but the way our systems are designed is to rebound from this. We're supposed to, we're made to handle acute stress, right? Like run from the lion kind of stress. And what happens is, our energy is taken away from what's considered non-essential systems. So that's why, we've got the gut disruption, because you don't have to digest lunch if you're not going to outrun the tiger. You just don't. Same with fertility issues, and all of that. So that becomes, it's when stress is chronic and we're supposed to experience it and recover, and experience it and recover. And all these little stresses, even if it's not something big, just the chronic nature of life today, and then add in something like chronic pain, or toxic overload, right? Our body feels like it is just always fighting. And that really sets us up for more chronic illness down the line. I mean, there's not one form of chronic illness that doesn't directly relate to chronic inflammation.
Okay. So any kind of chronic stress is a stress on the body that the body is going to then perhaps become more imbalanced thanks to that more inflamed, more tendency to autoimmune.
Yeah. And again, we don't tend to, like you mentioned earlier, we don't tend to think of whatever we're experiencing as being, particularly stressful compared to whatever, fill in the blank. And so when we start to experience signs of illness and we're normalizing them and just kind of going about our day, we're just increasing this cycle.
Yeah. Yeah. Barbara asked about gallstones, if they can block drainage and cause die-off symptoms or detox. Do you have any commentary on that?
I'm going to not field the particular question, other than I think anything, I don't know that gallstones are the direct result. I would say that, if take it back a step further, why do you have gallstones? I think all of our, our digestive tract is definitely part of our detox system. And so any kind of die-off can cause those symptoms, which is why some people can't even handle a binder, which is supposed to be helpful, right? But they just, it's too intense. So I'll defer to you on that one if you have a.
Well, I'll say in general, bile needs to move and not be sluggish. So there can be blocks in the bile ducts, which are a problem, a little bit more specific problem than what generally a functional coach can deal with. But doing things like bitter foods, having good fats in your diet, drinking lots of water. That's why most American, well, there's a lot of issues with the standard American lifestyle, right? But one is not enough good fats, not enough water, not enough bitter foods. So the bile isn't pumping. And it's a kind of a reason for puffiness and weight gain and cellulite. So one of my mentors, Anne-Louise Gittleman, talks about bitter foods and the gallbladder quite a bit. So that can be an issue for sure. We talked about concussions earlier, and just that real top-down issue can make everything slow the whole way down. So you really have to look at the whole piece. We have a ebook about that, Barbara. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's I just kind of go over the whole digestive system in different places. It can be blocked, and different little symptoms like losing your sense of taste or smell is a pretty serious sign of some neurological issues, not having enough saliva in your mouth. So yeah, there's lots of steps along the way where poor digestion can hinder detoxification. So somebody's mentioning chemicals can be stressful, certainly pollution. We're all kind of living it.
That's another standard American issue. not that we don't have a chemical issue worldwide, but if we look at, you know, what's allowed in our products here and on our food that's not in other places of the world, we definitely experience, you know, beyond an overload.
Yeah, there was a question earlier. I don't know if you know this, Julie. Is there more autoimmunity in Europe versus the US? Do you know?
No, not more, but it is growing worldwide.
Okay.
And one of my, you know, people ask me all the time, well, you know, why are the numbers here? NIH numbers, I think, have it at like 43 million. And there's some other studies that show, you know, really it's over 50 million Americans have autoimmunity. And we're seeing higher and higher numbers in younger and younger populations in the pediatrics population. And so I believe so much of that is directly related to toxins. And so we kind of have fairly equivalent numbers to Europe. I think we might actually be a little worse here. And I would imagine that that's tied to the fact that there's, you know, some chemical use here that's just not allowed over there.
Okay.
But they have a ton of sugar in their diet now. And our, you know, standard American diet has become a worldwide crisis. We've shared that unfortunate gift with the world. And so we're sharing things like diabetes and all kinds of chronic inflammation issues with the rest of the world as well.
Okay. Yeah, I'm glad we're kind of ending on toxins. It's so important, you know, especially my audience is usually pretty good on diet. And then you're like, well, where is this still coming from? And it's so insidious. That's why I'm just such an advocate for that constant detox like you're doing. You're using your sauna, you're using your foot bath. Maybe it sounds crazy, but I'm the same way. Like I did a coffee out of this morning and it's a Thursday. Like I just do that stuff because
we're
always
exposed. I mean, you're never not being exposed. And the goal would be, you know, we want to detox faster and better than what we're taking in.
For sure.
I know.
Yeah, we had a question in the very beginning about COVID, and you know, just even when I feel respiratory stuff coming on, I detox. I just feel like it's always taking work off my body. So whatever is going on, detox.
Yeah. And the question was about COVID symptoms, and I actually can speak directly to this. I've had COVID.
Oh, okay.
I had COVID, the post-viral autoimmune spiral that COVID can cause. And at first I was like, well, shoot, what do I do? Because this is already how I live, right? So, but that should be your first thought, hopefully even before you get COVID, to help you be more resilient and avoid really getting sick or having a bad case. But regardless, if you do have it or, you know, do get it and you are experiencing symptoms, it is an inflammatory spiral that's going on. That's what makes it such a challenging virus, because, you know, it's not necessarily organ specific. And so anything that you can do, everything we just talked about, will help.
Okay.
You want to not be fueling that inflammation with anything else. You want to be reducing it the best you can, for sure.
So you were already doing all those good things. What else did you find to add in to help with your viral spiral?
What did I do? I did lots of wonderful nutrient IVs and things like NAD and things that a lot of people won't necessarily have access to if, you know, they don't already have a functional medicine provider who does fun stuff. I had also, I mean, even for my head injury, I did 3 months of hyperbaric for the head injury. So I, again, was trying to hit things from all angles and then make sure that all of my routines, I was like really actually utilizing all the tools I have, right? So we have a lot of tools and some of them kind of fall off. And so for me to get into my sauna in the summer, it's not my jam. Like I don't love getting in the sauna in the summer. So I have to be really thoughtful of that. And this happened to be last May was when that spiral started. So I had to be just really conscientious about doing the things that I know can help.
Yeah, that's a great point. I was sick last May and I was negative for COVID, but it's pretty odd. You're sick for like 10 days in May. But anyway, I was like detox Olympics. Like I was just one thing to the other. And then I would
Yeah.
be adding in like my steam inhaler. So I have all these tools, like you said, from various points. So I think that's one benefit of just knowing all this and having a medicine cabinet where you've got your silver nasal spray and you got your castor oil pot, because then you're like, okay, it's time. Because what if you don't have all that, right? And you're going through COVID, you can't get it.
And also step one, I mean, and I think people like us, you know, because we do have the toys and the knowledge and the connections to get all the goodies. Like literally step one, if you're getting sick or you've been sick, no sugar. Like just
Yeah.
immediately stop eating sugar. We don't realize how inflammatory it is. And it is, the body is a kind of, you know, has a great sense of humor, because usually when we're starting to feel sick is we're craving sugar because the body thinks it needs quick energy. But like,
Yeah.
just don't do it. Just stop the sugar. So it doesn't always need to be, you know, such a, you know, I get in the sauna, but again, I have clients that just, they take an Epsom salt bath. Like
Right.
there's
Do
so
what
many
you
ways
have
to,
in
yeah.
here for. Yeah. Whenever my son gets sick, I'm always like, it's because you had that sugar. No more, I'm always like, it's so funny. Maybe we'll take this as the last question from Kirsten. What are your favorite ways to de-stress? And have you ever tried brain tap?
Favorite ways to de-stress. Okay, so here's my thing on de-stressing. Um, I feel like all of us need we to create a stress management routine that comes from what I call two buckets. So we have the tried and true, one of my favorite go-tos under like the scientifically proven stress reducers is a gratitude journal, like a short, simple. I have my clients start with just write 3 things a day. So you're talking, what is that, like 60 seconds it takes to do that, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it does just quickly, as if you're writing, especially with your hand, it'll really quickly create those new positive neural pathways in your brain and start to shift you out of fight or flight. So that's one of my favorites. But you know, so on that list would be, here's where it's really personalized, because if somebody doesn't like something, they're not going to do it.
True.
So whether it's, you know, gratitude journaling, meditation, walking in nature, yoga, breathing, I love, you know, just quick intentional breathing techniques like the 4-7 breathing. I'm a really like bang for your buck. Like, you know, most people aren't going to start with an hour-long practice. So
Yeah.
those are some of the things you can choose from on those from that list. And then I have what I call filling your cup. What are the things that bring you joy? And unfortunately, so many people can't easily answer that question. We've often lost touch with that, especially moms or working moms. You know, we tend to just get really used to focusing on other people, and maybe the things we used to love to do, we don't do anymore, or working with the chronic illness community. Many of the things we love to do, we can't do anymore physically. So really
Right.
creating that joy list. So I joke because for me, my number one stress reliever is spending time with my horses. I have 6 horses at home
Oh,
that I take
wow.
care of. That would create stress for some people. So that's where this part of the list is really personal. You know, that would be
Yeah.
some people's form of torture. For me, it's just the thing that just instantly, you know, just brings that stress level down. I love to hike. I live in Colorado, and those are my 2 things would be my horses and my hiking. In addition to, I have a very, very committed morning practice. I get up early, I do my things without
Nice.
the noise. I don't turn my phone on. I don't check my email until I'm ready to start that day, you know, rooted. Um,
Nice. I love
yeah.
it. I love it. I love the personalization too. I don't know about you, but like I'm a similar. I feel like my work is so mental that when I want to de-stress, I would like it to be like tangible, like
Yes.
physically touching things and
Yeah.
that kind of thing, like being outside. Yeah, sometimes walking my dog can be a great de-stress. And again, it might look like a chore, but just to be like, oh, I'm out of my head. I love mindfulness meditation too. I don't know if that's the type you like. Just again, it gets you out of your head to just observe, like, oh, I hear a bird chirping. I see the fan going. It's just so nice. So for me, a lot of it is, yeah, switching out of mental.
And it does, a lot of it has to do with how you spend your day. You notice like neither one of the two favorites that I listed, nor my meditation or my journaling, have other people involved. I love what I do, but I too am in my head and I'm with people.
Yeah.
Time. And so my recharge, my refuel is nature and animals usually. So I'm with you there.
Yeah, it's funny, when I had my clinic, I was the same. Like, I was a lot. And now that I work from home and don't see many clients, and it's COVID, I'm like, I just got to get to a coffee shop, or I've got to get, somewhere where I can see people.
Yeah, it is. There's a big difference. And that's one of the things we didn't touch on that's so important for overall wellness, but also can help reduce inflammation, is connections, right? Putting our energy into our connections, especially, I mean, that's always been on the list, but I think takes more effort over this past year. And so I would offer that connecting on this over a screen is great, and it's definitely better than not connecting. But that we are human animals and we're supposed to touch other people. And so in a way that you feel safe with people, that you feel safe, it is so important to stay connected to your network.
Yeah, I think people are realizing it more, because we used to be like overdoing life, and now started with COVID, we're like doing, and you just it makes you realize, all those connections you have are really super valuable. I don't know if you can see this from way back, but this is my like detox poster we made this winter, and friends time is one of my items, because it's just so important.
It is, and it's building. We were created to be resilient beings, and we tend to lose our resilience with inflammation and life. And so we need to rebuild, focus on that refuel, rebuilding that resilience, and friend time.
Definitely. This releases all these good hormones, right? It's relaxing us. Yeah, it's lowering that
oxytocin. It's all really good stuff. I love this. I have to field this question.
I thought that was funny too. I'm like, so you want to read it first?
Sure. Do men make lousier patients? In my experience, I definitely work with more women than men, because I focus on autoimmunity, and it's about 4-to-1 women to men. So there are more women in the autoimmune world. I will say, though, to credit the men that I have worked with, the answer is no. They have been amazing. Some of the approaches may, be different, and the language I choose may be different. But when a man is, from what I have found, anybody that has come that is at that point where they are ready to, be supported and make the change, I don't notice a gender difference at all. I would say there might even be an additional. Sometimes working with women, the first thing we have to break through is that idea that self-care is selfish. Right? It is not. It is the most selfless thing you can do. Most men don't even have that story.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah. And I think I see my male clients be really direct about like problem solving, and that it's
like, oh, this is the action. Okay, how do I take it? All right, good. Then now, what's the next thing?
Yeah, I will share something funny back when I had my clinic that I saw a few times. Is I think if you ask a woman, are you getting enough exercise? She's like, oh no, I really could be doing better. And even if she's doing all right, and the men, I would get the feedback later. I'd be like, I saw, yeah, I'm on the gym like 5 times a week. And then I like have his wife as a client the next week, and she'd be like, he's going to gym once a month. And I thought that was so funny. So I think there might be a little bit of a tendency, again, not that it's good or bad, but like women will sort of downplay what we do, and maybe men play up what they do. It could be, it's just like a colloquial story, but I always thought that was funny when that came
It is
up.
really funny, and I do love when it makes sense and it works. It's really fun to have, if a client has a partner, to like touch in with the partner. And I do find, if I'm being honest, I do that more when the client is a male. I will touch in with the wife and to get that kind of reality check of my favorite male client story is I worked with a gentleman here locally who's fabulous, and we went like right, and we were working on inflammation. It's interesting. I didn't know at the time that he hired me that he had autoimmune thyroid markers. I hadn't seen his labs yet. He had been referred really for inflammation expressing as cardiometabolic issues. And so we just went to work. Because again, guys, it doesn't matter. The approach is the same. It's
not that specific, really.
It does not matter what your diagnosis may or may not be, or if you have one, or if you were chronically ill and you want to get better, or you're feeling older than you want to feel. Like it's all the same approach. And so, we went after diet, and I changed his coffee drinking habit, meaning what he was putting in it, right? The sugar and the dairy that were going in the coffee every morning. And this gentleman texted me every day, I hate my coffee. My coffee's disgusting. You ruined my coffee. I mean, I've never had a client. It was hilarious. And and we had just started working together, so I didn't really know him that well at that point. And I finally was like, here's an idea. Stop drinking coffee. Not bad without the dairy and the sugar.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think a female client would have. And when I say it was probably 20 days of a daily, like, you have ruined my life because you have ruined my coffee. And the beauty is he has learned for himself that dairy is not his friend, and he never went back to putting dairy and sugar in his coffee. He did figure it out. We are now friends, and my bonus, his thyroid markers corrected that I didn't know he had to begin with, because we went after as did everything else that he was sent to me for. So men are fun to work with.
Really there you go, men. We like you. We do, especially when you see mostly women. It's like, oh, I got a man.
Yeah, it's refreshing.
This is very nice. Yeah, I want to just piggyback your story. Sometimes you take something away temporarily, it lets the person make the decision, and then they don't have to think it's forever. I had this lovely client who literally baked her own bread every day. Who even does that? It's amazing. But I was like, maybe just like take a month off. And that was hard for her. It was like, hey, if you want to go back to it, it's your decision, it's your life, but just try it. And of course, like, she felt a million times better. She had tons of joint pain and stuff. So, I let it just try it.
It's the difference between giving somebody a list, right? Like, just avoid this for the rest of your life. None of us are going to do it. We could do it for a little while. But when you remove a food temporarily and put it back in and feel what it's doing, that'll stick with you. And that's the gold. That's really it.
Yeah.
And they're driving the decision.
Exactly. Yeah. You can do whatever you want. It's your life. So it's got to be your decision.
But we have to get you feeling well first, so that then you can make that educated
Exactly. Well, I'm so glad we got to connect with you and talk about some of these nuances. I think that's really like the fun part, is getting into some of these details. So thanks to everybody for being live and your great questions. And I always put these on our YouTube channel afterwards. So if you want to check it again or send it to a friend, you have it. Great. Thanks again, Julie. Really nice to get to know you. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone, for the great questions.